Number 9. The Westall School Incident. The Westall incident was reported in 1966 when students and teachers at a secondary school in Melbourne observed a strange object descend near the school grounds before departing at high speed. According to witnesses, the object appeared metallic, disc-shaped, and moved in a way that did not resemble known aircraft. The sighting occurred in daylight, allowing many observers to describe its shape and motion with unusual clarity. Several teachers later confirmed that students were not alone in what they saw, and multiple accounts described the object hovering briefly before accelerating away. Some witnesses reported smaller objects nearby, though these details varied. No photographs were officially recovered, but the consistency of independent testimonies has kept the case active for decades. Authorities later suggested explanations involving weather balloons or experimental aircraft. Yet some researchers note that these proposals do not fully align with the reported movements or timing. School records and later interviews indicate that the event was taken seriously at the time, though no definitive investigation outcome was released. Despite renewed interest from researchers and journalists, the Westall incident has not been officially explained. The question remains whether this was a rare misinterpretation of a conventional object or an observation that still falls outside current understanding. Number 8. Florence Stadium Sighting. The Florence Stadium sighting was reported in 1954 during a football match, when thousands of spectators and players simultaneously noticed unusual objects moving across the daytime sky. According to witnesses, the objects appeared bright, slow-moving, and clearly visible above the stadium, drawing attention away from the game itself. The match was temporarily disrupted as people pointed upward, attempting to follow the motion overhead. Several descriptions compared the objects to elongated shapes or luminous discs, though accounts varied in detail. What made the event particularly unusual was the scale of observation, with estimates ranging from 10,000 to over 40,000 people present. Shortly after the objects disappeared, a strange white fibrous material was reported falling from the sky, later collecting on seats, rooftops, and nearby streets. This substance, often described as angel hair, was briefly examined but reportedly dissolved quickly, limiting further analysis. Some scientists later suggested atmospheric phenomena, such as spider silk carried by air currents, while others proposed optical effects linked to sunlight and temperature inversions. However, these explanations have not been universally accepted. No definitive conclusion has been reached regarding what was observed above Florence that day. The combination of mass witnesses and unexplained physical traces continues to raise questions about how such an event could occur without a clear, agreed-upon explanation. Number 6. Washington, D.C. Radar Wave. The Washington, D.C. sightings were reported in the summer of 1952, when air traffic controllers and military radar operators detected multiple unidentified targets moving over the nation's capital. According to official records, these objects appeared repeatedly over restricted airspace, sometimes hovering, sometimes accelerating at speeds that raised immediate concern. The reports quickly prompted military response due to the sensitive location. Fighter jets were scrambled on several occasions, and pilots later stated they observed lights performing maneuvers that did not match conventional aircraft. In some cases, the radar targets vanished as jets approached, only to reappear once the aircraft withdrew. Civilian airline pilots also reported visual sightings, adding to the volume of testimony. At the time, officials suggested temperature inversions might have caused false radar returns, a known atmospheric effect. While some radar specialists accepted this explanation, others noted that it did not fully account for simultaneous visual sightings or the coordinated movement patterns observed on multiple radar systems. The inconsistency between equipment readings and human observation remains debated. The events drew national attention and were widely reported in the press, yet no definitive conclusion has been reached. Decades later, the Washington, D.C. radar wave remains unexplained, raising questions about what exactly was detected in the skies over the capital. Number 5. O'Hare Airport Incident.
The O'Hare International Airport incident was reported in 2006, when multiple airport employees and airline personnel observed a circular object hovering above a gate area during the afternoon. According to witnesses, the object appeared dark and solid against the cloud cover, remaining stationary for several minutes before departing abruptly. Some described it as silently punching a clean hole through the clouds as it ascended. The sighting was notable because it occurred at one of the busiest airports in the world, involving trained observers accustomed to monitoring aircraft. Ramp workers, supervisors, and at least one pilot independently reported the same general shape and behavior. No corresponding radar target was publicly confirmed, which added to uncertainty surrounding the event. Airport officials later suggested the object may have been a weather-related phenomenon or a misidentified conventional aircraft.
However, some researchers argue that these explanations do not fully match the reported stationary hover or the sudden vertical departure. Weather data from the time did not clearly indicate conditions typically associated with visual distortions. No official investigation report was released, and the incident has not been formally explained. The lack of physical evidence contrasts sharply with the number of witnesses, leaving the O'Hare sighting unresolved. What exactly hovered above the airport that day remains unexplained and continues to raise questions. Number 4. Aerial school encounter. The aerial school encounter was reported in 1994, when more than 60 students at a rural school in Zimbabwe described seeing an unusual object descend near the playground during the morning recess. According to witnesses, the object appeared metallic and disc-shaped, landing briefly beyond the school boundary before departing. The sighting occurred in daylight and was observed simultaneously by children of different ages. What drew attention was the consistency of the accounts. Students were interviewed separately by teachers, journalists, and later researchers, yet many described similar shapes, movements, and timing. Some children also reported seeing small figures near the object, though interpretations varied and were framed through personal understanding. No physical traces were officially documented at the site. Psychologists and educators suggested possible explanations including mass suggestion, stress, or misinterpretation of an unfamiliar event. Others noted that the children had little prior exposure to popular UFO imagery, raising questions about how such similar descriptions emerged independently. Despite this, no scientific consensus was reached. The aerial school case remains discussed because of the number of witnesses and the careful documentation of their testimony. No definitive conclusion has been reached, and the event has not been officially explained. It remains an unresolved observation that continues to raise questions about perception, memory, and unexplained phenomena. Number 3. Rendlesham Forest Incident. The Rendlesham Forest incident was reported in December 1980 when US and UK military personnel stationed near RAF Woodbridge observed strange lights descending into a nearby forest in Suffolk, England. According to witnesses, the lights appeared unusually bright and moved silently through the trees, prompting security patrols to investigate the area on foot during the night. Several servicemen later stated they encountered a glowing object within the forest, describing it as metallic, triangular, and covered with unfamiliar markings. Radiation readings were reportedly taken at the site afterward, showing slight anomalies, though their significance remains debated. Over the following nights, additional lights were reported in the sky, some appearing to maneuver or project beams downward. Internal memoranda and witness statements were later declassified, confirming that the events were formally documented at the time. Some researchers suggest explanations involving misidentified stars, a nearby lighthouse, or atmospheric effects. However, critics argue that these explanations do not fully account for the reported close-range observations or the sequence of events described by multiple personnel. No official explanation has resolved all aspects of the case. Despite decades of analysis, no definitive conclusion has been reached. The Rendlesham Forest incident remains unexplained, raising ongoing questions about what was observed by trained military witnesses in that forest. Number 2. Naval Pilot Offshore Encounter.
The naval pilot encounter was reported in 2004 off the coast of California, when U.S. Navy aviators observed an unidentified object during a routine training exercise near the Channel Islands. According to witnesses, the object appeared smooth, white, and elongated, moving erratically above the ocean surface without visible wings or propulsion. Pilots described it accelerating rapidly, stopping abruptly, and changing direction in ways they could not predict. What made the incident stand out was the combination of direct visual observation and sensor data.
Radar systems aboard ships and aircraft reportedly tracked the object as it descended toward the sea and then climbed suddenly to higher altitude. One pilot stated that the object mirrored his aircraft's movements before disappearing at high speed. These details were later discussed in publicly released reports. Some researchers suggest advanced drone technology, electronic interference, or unusual atmospheric conditions could explain parts of the encounter.
However, these possibilities do not fully account for the reported flight characteristics or the consistency between radar and eyewitness accounts. Others caution that limited data and high-speed conditions can distort perception. No official or definitive explanation has been confirmed. The encounter remains unexplained and continues to raise questions about what was observed in restricted military airspace during that exercise. The Phoenix Lights event was reported in March 1997 when thousands of residents across Arizona observed a massive formation of lights moving slowly across the night sky. According to witnesses, the lights appeared in a wide V-shaped pattern, silently passing overhead for several minutes. The phenomenon was seen by civilians, police officers, and trained pilots, many of whom described the lights as part of a single large object rather than separate aircraft. Video recordings from multiple locations captured the lights drifting steadily before fading out, though the footage varied in clarity. Some observers stated the formation blocked out stars behind it, suggesting a solid structure, while others perceived individual points of light maintaining precise spacing. Emergency call centers reportedly received a surge of reports as the event unfolded. Military flares were later suggested as a possible explanation, and officials demonstrated how flares can descend slowly and appear stationary from a distance. However, some researchers argue that the timing, movement pattern, and early sightings do not fully align with known flare exercises. This discrepancy has fueled ongoing debate. Despite extensive public discussion and analysis, the Phoenix Lights have not been officially explained in a way that satisfies all observations. No definitive conclusion has been reached, and the event remains unexplained, continuing to raise questions about what was witnessed in the Arizona sky that night. Number 7. The Tehran Air Encounter. The Tehran encounter was reported in 1976 when Iranian air defense systems detected an unidentified object moving above the city during the night. According to witnesses, the object appeared intensely luminous and prompted military authorities to scramble fighter jets for interception. One pilot later reported visual contact with a bright, diamond-shaped object that maneuvered in ways he could not predict. As the aircraft approached, onboard instruments reportedly malfunctioned, including communications and weapon systems, before returning to normal once distance increased. Ground radar operators also tracked the object, noting sudden changes in speed and direction that did not resemble known aircraft behavior. These details were documented in military reports later discussed publicly. Some researchers suggest that electronic interference, atmospheric plasma, or rare astronomical events could account for portions of the incident. However, these explanations do not fully address the synchronized radar tracking and repeated system disruptions described by the pilots. Others argue that stress and unfamiliar visual stimuli may have influenced perception during a tense nighttime operation. The Tehran case remains notable because it combines pilot testimony, radar data, and official documentation, yet no definitive conclusion has been reached. What exactly caused the reported object to behave as described has not been officially explained and remains unexplained decades later.